Hi. Right, let's start this again. And I'm going to kill my darling business partner Jodie because I have been live for 3 minutes over just on YouTube and not in the Facebook group. And I thought it was really strange that nobody was coming on live. That is why. So there's currently a nice short little video clip of me on YouTube. But I will go, I'll go and delete it off from there and we'll start again. So good Saturday, good morning, it's Saturday. I don't usually work today, so this is really, really strange for me. And now everything that I set up beautifully is now not set up, so let's crack on and start again. Ugh, not yet. So if you're around on Facebook, come and say good morning. Good morning. Who is this? Hi, Jenna. I've been blabbering away for 3 minutes, wondering why nobody at all was around, and that's why I wasn't on Facebook. So it's day 4 of the summit. It's the last day. I'm thrilled to be here with you first thing, obviously, because I am very much a morning person. If you've caught any of the other workshops in the summit, let me know. Let me know which ones you very much liked. If you haven't, they're all available on replay. Our lives have been very, very quiet this time, which is really unusual, but the replays have been ace, so that's completely cool. So Jenna was cross at me for being late. Honestly, go and watch that 3-minute clip over on YouTube. I'm fuming, and I've had to guess how to create this now. So it seems like we're all good. We're fine. So, ironically, what I'm here today to talk about is going to be stress, which is great because 3 seconds ago I was under extreme stress to get this fixed and to figure it out, and that's part of life. So, morning, Jade. You all right, my darling? So welcome to, like I said, day 4 of the summit. There are 4 workshops going on today. I'll tell you all about the other 3 later. So I'm talking about stress, anxiety, and understanding it, managing it, and controlling it, because it's a really, really common and familiar part of life for a lot of people. But that doesn't mean we have to just let it ride and that we have to just accept it and suck it up for what it is. So if you haven't met me before, most of you will have, but there are some new members for this summit. I'm Roxy. I'm co-founder of Ladies Lifeline with Jodie. I'm in South Sheffield. Lots of you know me as a coach or a business coach, or even as a website builder, which I am because I love it. But I'm also a mental health therapist. I've had a private practice for nearly 7 years now. I keep trying to close it and can't because it's so busy, which is lovely and also sad, but that's life. I'm just glad I'm around to help. I own a few businesses. I'm a proper geek. I'm a proper sports nut. I like books and wine, as you'll have heard me talk about earlier this week. So let's dig in. Morning, Nick. You all right, my love? Sorry I seemed late. I wasn't late, I promise. It's all that Jodie's fault. So stress. Stress is a really, really normal reaction. And it's a reaction to a potentially dangerous situation as we perceive it. And we'll talk about that a lot more in a bit because so much of the stress that's created now is from a situation that we've decided is dangerous that actually isn't. And it's our brain kind of playing tricks on us. But when you encounter sudden stress, your brain floods your body with chemicals and hormones like adrenaline and cortisol. And this creates that whole fight or flight response that you may have heard of, and I think I talk about in a bit. But it gets your heart beating faster, which sends blood to muscles and important organs. You feel energized, you've got heightened awareness, so you can focus on your immediate needs at that time. And there are different kinds of stress. And again, this is really important to notice. Morning, Rachel. We haven't seen you for ages. How are you? Hopefully not stressed. That would be great. Morning, Sophie. Lovely to see you all on a Saturday. Just pop up and tell StreamYard who you are if you get a chance, so then I don't have to keep flicking over to check. So there are 2 types of stress, and loads of people don't know this, and this is something that still fascinates me, that we are not taught about this kind of stuff. Because imagine being taught in school how stress works on your body and what you can do about it. It allows you to be able to make different and potentially better decisions. So there is something called eustress, which is positive, beneficial stress. And it has these kind of characteristics where it motivates us. It focuses our energy. Eustress is short-term stress, so it doesn't last long. Eustress is something that's perceived as being within our coping abilities. So it's something we know we can cope with. Sometimes it can feel really exciting and it can improve your performance. So something like a promotion or a new relationship, Jade, planning a wedding, moving house, taking a holiday, retiring, studying, all of those things can create stress. But a lot of the time, this stress is eustress and it is beneficial to us, providing it is short term, okay? And providing you perceive it as being within what you can cope with. Yeah, that's really, really important. It's within what we believe we can cope with. I hope it stays that way too, Jade. I weren't stressed about mine, but my wedding, we just took off and did it in Mexico, just the two of us. So I had no stress whatsoever. Yes, this is exactly the same as good stress, Nick. This is eustress. It's exactly what it is. It's like positive stress. Yeah. I'm glad. Planning the wedding. Yeah, fun. And then there is the stress that we all kind of associate with when anyone says stress. And this is the idea of distress. And this is the negative stuff. So this is things that can cause anxiety or concern. It can be short or long term, and we'll break distress down in a little bit, but it can be short or long term. It's perceived as being outside our coping abilities. So it's stuff that we can't cope with. And one of the things is eustress can turn to distress if it goes on too long, or from that moment we perceive it as we can't cope with this anymore. It feels unpleasant. This is why when we talk about stress, we're always thinking about distress. It's very rare we're thinking about the good stuff. It decreases your performance and it can lead to mental and physical problems. So examples of distress, and these are by no means comprehensive, are things like a family death or divorce, injury or illness, conflict in relationships, financial problems, unemployment, overwork. It's a massive one for loads of people, it's overwork, job insecurity, fears about anything. And this is one of my favorites. Unrealistic expectations is a huge, huge contributor to stress, specifically distress, obviously. So it's a really important thing to know, because a lot of the time we'll say we're stressed without checking in whether actually this is a good stress for us, whether we can cope with it, whether we can use it, and whether in some way we're enjoying it. So like going for a promotion or getting a new relationship, although it can be stressful and you're overthinking and you're exhibiting lots of behaviors you don't particularly like, there can be some element of enjoying it. So when we're saying we're stressed, let's really check in first of all and check what kind of stress this is. Now, to get a little bit deeper, see, this is a topic that's really hard to make fun and light for Saturday morning, but it's really important that the more we know about it, the more we can kind of categorize where our stresses are, and the more we know what to do about them as individual things, rather than clumping them all together and just deciding, I am so stressed, which is like what a lot of us do. So distress can be broken down into kind of 3 types of stress. Right. Unrealistic expectations, self-frustrations with your team is what wakes you up at night. Okay, we'll talk about what you can do about this in a little bit. Actually, it'd be interesting if you can tell me what you are doing about this now, if you want to. So distress, there's kind of 3 main types that are classified. And it's really important to recognise, while I'm talking about this from a kind of clinical way, when I'm working with people, at no point am I saying, oh, you're suffering from some episodic acute stress. It's not how it works. It's very, very individual to people, but it can be really helpful to have an overview of what kind of stress what group of stress my stress is lying in right now. So acute stress happens to everyone, and it's your body's immediate reaction to new and challenging situations. And this is kind of the kind of stress you might feel when you narrowly escape a car accident, or you get on a roller coaster, or you're doing extreme sports. And these incidents of acute stress don't normally do you any harm. And actually, creepily, weirdly, research has shown they might even be good for you. Because stressful situations kind of give your brain and your body practice in developing the best response to future stressful situations. Acute stress is kind of categorized by once the danger passes, your body systems will return back to normal. So that whole like thrill of a roller coaster, all that huge adrenaline when you swerve out of the way of a car accident, your body calms down relatively quickly from something like that. Now, just to add onto this, severe acute stress is a different story. And this is the kind of stress that when you're faced with like a life-threatening situation, and it can lead to post-traumatic stress and other mental health illnesses. So severe acute stress, that would be something potentially, and this is where it gets tricky because not everybody reacts in the same way, but potentially something like being mugged. It's acute stress, it's short term, it's very quick. But for some people, that can kind of stay with them and then it would develop into other kinds. But it's a short, sharp situation almost is usually what is classified as acute stress. Does that make sense? Jenna, I feel a lot of stress is directly linked to feeling overwhelmed, often around the worst situations that haven't happened yet. They're just in my head. Okay, yours isn't stress, yours is anxiety, almost certainly, because you're inventing it. So, and we're going to cover anxiety in a bit, but that is almost classified as I'm worrying about something that isn't real. It doesn't exist. I'm making it up. It might become real, but at this point in time, it's not a thing. I'm inventing it. So we'll talk about anxiety in a bit. Overwhelm, almost definitely stress. Yeah, I'll come on to that. Oh, how fun talking about this. It's purely because there's so much I want to teach, but it's such a weird topic for lots of people. So can anyone think of a time they've kind of had acute stress? So something that's short and sharp, made you panic, but then you've come back to normal. Yeah, and actually, like I said, although that is distress, it could actually be good for you. Yeah. Episodic acute stress. I find episodic a really hard word to say. So this is when you have frequent episodes of acute stress. So this might happen. So this is where I'm going to confuse you now, Jenna, and this is why anxiety and stress is such a big topic, because it all gets mixed up in the middle. So this might happen if you're often anxious and worried about things that you suspect may happen. The thing is, you're already probably anxious that leads to this. So you might feel like your life's chaotic and you seemingly go from one crisis to a next. So it might not even be related. It's just that things keep happening to me over and over again. So certain professions kind of have a higher risk of this. So something like law enforcement, firefighters, I won't say doctors and nurses, medical professionals, what I'm trying to say. They might also lead to frequent and high stress situations. So you're going into them repeatedly. And as with severe acute stress, episodic acute stress can affect your physical and mental health. This is not the same as a one-off episode. So even if you're in one of those professions, you almost have to, you know that you are doing this. So you know you're going to go into that situation and you're choosing to do it. So learning how you manage that is super, super important. Right, I've got a load of comments. Oh, I can't see them when I go over. So Nick, at work, I thrive in stress, lots going, high capacity, lots of challenge. Problem is, it doesn't take much to tip into distress, and then I overthink everything and feel like a failure because I'm not my best. It's a daily battle. It is. So there's lots to be learned around knowing what your capacity is, knowing what is real and actually affects you and what is just stuff going on that you can accept as someone else's responsibility, even if they're not doing it the way that you want them to. The overthinking everything is a big part of what leads to anxiety, and there are ways to stop yourself doing that. One of the biggest questions I'll be asking all of you, and you'll all groan at me at some point, is whether you're doing a meditation, because it so helps with overthinking. And what meditation does is almost train your brain to come back to what is going on right now that I can deal with, rather than making up future stuff or what I could have done differently in the past stuff. Okay, and that whole I'm not at my best, I'm pretty sure you are. The thing is that our best sometimes isn't what we want it to be, but there's a real difference between whether you are actually at your best or whether you feel like you should be doing better, which is a totally different ballgame. Generally, we are all doing our best all of the time, generally. So lots of that is about reframing how you're thinking about this. Rachel, I used to write down to-do list before I closed my laptop down for the day, which helped. Well done. Getting yourself away from being accessible is huge. I wish I worked harder on switching my phone off and being away from things. Well done. The plan for the next day is great. It takes off a lot of the pressure. Good for you. Sophie, yay, jumping out of plane diving in New Zealand. So see, that could be eustress potentially, but it can also be acute stress for that moment. And although it's negative, it has a beneficial impact like later on, because it helps us figure out how we're going to deal with stress. Right, so the last bad stress is chronic stress. And this is generally kind of what leads to anxiety a lot of the time. So when you have high levels of stress for an extended period of time, you've got chronic stress. Long-term stress like this can have a negative impact on our health, and I mean such a negative impact. So it can lead to things like anxiety, cardiovascular disease, which is huge, and so we underestimate so much how stress like hurts our heart. It leads to depression, high blood pressure, weakened immune system. And chronic stress also leads to frequent ailments like headaches and upset stomach, sleep difficulties. And this is when things are going on for far too long. Okay. So stress isn't always bad for us, but it's important to be aware of how we're feeling and then what we can do about it. Sophie's masturbating at me. I so need to start practicing meditation. You don't need to. You can choose to, and your life will be happier. My brain's constantly in battle worrying about what's been done, what people thought about me, and worrying about the future. So many are in your shoes. I frequently get like this, and I recognize immediately it's at the point that I've let meditation slide. Meditation helps us control what we're thinking about or what we choose to give our attention to some degree. Meditation is just incredible, and it just sounds so shitty and woo-woo. It's ace. All right. So, symptoms of stress. Who wants to tell me what they've got or what they get? So, there's another slide for this one, I'm afraid. So, for me, I'll kind of talk through them, but emotional symptoms of stress include easily agitated, frustrated, and moody. That's my first sign. As soon as I get snappy, I'm immediately like, oh, I'm stressed. Feeling overwhelmed and losing control. I feel overwhelmed. Have difficulty relaxing, quieting your mind. You've all said that. Feeling bad about yourself, low self-esteem, and avoiding people. Now, this one's really interesting. How many of you, and I know some of you, and I know some of our members very specifically, the first thing they do when they're stressed is kind of withdraw, and they go backwards and they almost try to deal with it themselves. Whereas actually, the really helpful thing with stress is to come and share it and come and talk about it, and we help you reframe it, and we give you ideas of how to get out of it. It's such a common one, is avoiding others. I know things about my friends when I don't hear from them for a while because I know exactly what they're doing. Physical symptoms of stress: low energy, headaches, upset stomach, aches, pains, tense muscles. My shoulders come here when I'm stressed, and I can literally feel them, and I work really hard at pushing them down, and then I have so many knots in my back. Chest pain, rapid heartbeat, insomnia, waking up in the night is a perfect example. Frequent colds. If you're one of those people who always feels like they've got a cold and can't find it off, it's very likely that you're stressed, so your immune system's lower. Loss of sexual desire and or ability. I don't want to have sex when I'm stressed. No interest whatsoever. Nervousness and shaking. Quite an extreme one, but there are definitely people that have it. Nick, I've learned through Ladies Lifeline how much stress can affect you. Hormones, medical mindset, and so much. Started meditating early days. What are you using to meditate, Nick? And firstly, tell me that, and then I'll ask the question. Yep, you definitely withdraw, Jenna. You are absolutely a withdrawer. I know that, and I will chase you down, when I remember. So they're kind of they were the emotional and physical symptoms, but then we have like cognitive symptoms. So when your brain just basically doesn't feel like it works. So worrying, racing thoughts, forgetfulness, that's one of mine, straight away, and disorganization. I feel like everything's like, I ain't got control of anything. And we don't have control, we just think we do. But that's the point when I know that I'm stressed. Inability to focus, poor judgment, being pessimistic, or seeing only the negative side. I see that a lot from people, is when everything is doom and gloom, and massive symptom of stress. And then behavioural symptoms, so you don't want to eat, or you're eating too much, you're procrastinating and avoiding stuff. Increased use of alcohol, drugs, cigarettes. I absolutely turn to wine more when I'm stressed. and it's a thing I can use it as a trigger to recognise, ooh, I'm stressed. More nervous behaviours, nail biting, fidgeting, pacing, playing with your hair, blah, blah, blah. Nick, today, just out of interest, I've just done the Calm app before I came on live here. There is, I don't know if you've ever done the Daily Trip with Jeff Warren. He wrote our last book club book, or was part of it. But the Daily Trip today is ace. It's about self-compassion, and I genuinely nearly cried a little bit, which is very unlike me. But yeah, do the Daily Trip today. Anyone who's got Calm and the subscription, go do Jeff Warren's Daily Trip. Okay. So if you've got a mo, put down kind of what you know your symptoms, what your signs of stress are, because the more you can recognise them, the more you have to, I'm really not talking, the more you recognise them, the easier it is to start worrying about the stress. I don't mean worry about the stress, what am I saying? Tackling the stress, than worrying about the behaviour. So what happens is lots of people start stressing that they're overwhelmed, or they're forgetful, or that they're drinking more, they're smoking more, they're biting their nails, and they get stressed about that, the behaviour, rather than the actual thing that's causing it, which is the stress. Okay, so it's going back to knowing what you are working on. You are very welcome. It's such a good one today. So stress management, this feels like such a weird concept for me, because while stress is a normal part of life, too much stress is clearly harmful for your physical and mental well-being. But the goal of stress management is not to get rid of stress completely. It's not only impossible, but as we've just talked about, stress can be healthy in some situations. So in order to manage your stress, first you need to identify, I said need, but it applies there. If you want to manage it, you need to do this. You first have to identify the things that cause you stress, or your triggers, and figure out which of these things can be avoided. All right, and then find ways to cope with those negative stresses that can't be avoided. So over time, managing your stress levels can absolutely lower your risk for stress-related diseases, and it helps you feel better on an actual daily basis. Now, the thing is, all the stress management things are the things you don't want to do when you're stressed, because A, you feel like you don't have time for it. B, you can't be bothered. C, it doesn't feel natural. So I'm thinking about things like laugh and connect with people. It doesn't feel natural when you're stressed. It feels natural to go away from it and, I'm going to say be grumpy, but I'm not talking to my 6-year-old, am I? So this idea of stress management, all of these things, A, are proven, and B, I know for an absolute fact, help with stress. Now, exercise is what makes me laugh, because I freaking hate exercise. I like yoga, I hate cardio, I have no interest in it. But I have been supremely stressed and anxious these last couple of weeks for not even a real reason that I can think of, but I've started running. And by running, I mean I've started doing 1K on a treadmill, but choosing to make myself go and do it. And I can't tell you how different I feel. I'm not trying to do it for a reason, or to get healthy, or to get fit. I'm doing it because I know it's a really good stress management thing, and I feel so much better. For some people, it's changing their diet, getting better sleep. I sleep really well through my stress. That's never been one of my triggers, but it definitely is for other people. And this is why working with stress can be really hard, because our own response to it is so different to other people's. So some of the stuff people have been saying, like waking up in the night, never experienced that, just not my thing. Overthinking, not so much for me. I feel overwhelmed, like I've got too much to do, but I don't really spend much time overthinking. So it's really important to recognise when you say you're stressed, or your friend says they're stressed and they're doing this, what works for them might not be what works for you. But all of these things absolutely work. One for me is create routine. If I don't have a routine, I know that leads me to stress. So at the minute, so come September, both my children will be in school properly full time. So my littlest goes to school in September. But at the minute, it's in nursery 3 days a week. But those 3 days change depending on what I and my husband have got on. So I almost feel like I don't have a routine right now. And I know that absolutely contributes to my stress. So it's really important to start figuring out what triggers you, what you can figure out is a stressful situation for you, and then what you can do about it, or what can be avoided, because sometimes you can just absolutely avoid it. Sometimes your stress comes from scrolling through Facebook. Mine definitely does. Sometimes your stress comes from hanging out with your mum. Just don't hang out with her that day. If she stresses you out, it's okay. You get to choose. And this comes back to this idea of you get some element of control. So not taking control of the situation and doing nothing only makes it worse. Withdrawing from me, Jenna, and many other people, withdrawing almost always makes it worse. And eventually you'll come out of the other side. And there's a theory, I'm not fully sure if I'm sold on it, but there's a theory that anybody with kind of stress, anxiety, even depression, if they are left alone and don't do anything, will come through it within 6 to 12 months. And I can see how that's a positive thing. So in theory, you could do nothing and you'll feel better in a year. But why wait a fucking year? That is a long, long time to put up with stuff that you could change if you chose to. And it's that choosing to a lot of the time, because the choosing is not always easy. It's not always easy to go and do a 1K run. And 1K is tiny. It's like, it takes 6 minutes. But it's that I've not let it become a thing. I'm just like, right, I'm going to go and do it now, rather than sit thinking all day, I have to go and do this. And I've never used exercise as a stress management tool before, but I decided to try this time because I felt like a lot of the other stuff that normally works wasn't. So anyway, look at your triggers. If any of you are still around, share, drop me some of your triggers in if you know, and what you think you could do about it. Okay, so the differences almost between stress and anxiety. So stress comes from the demands placed on your brain and body. And these are often demands of other people, such as work and friends and life. They can be demands you put on yourself, without a doubt. Anxiety is when you feel high levels of worry, unease, or fear. So stress is like your body's natural reaction to a trigger and is generally short term. It can be positive or negative. And when stress kicks in and helps you pull off that deadline you thought was a lost cause, it's a positive thing. When stress results in insomnia, poor concentration, and impaired ability to do the things you normally do, it's negative. Stress is a response to a threat in any given situation. Okay? Anxiety, on the other hand, is a sustained mental health disorder that can be triggered by stress. And this is where it gets tricky, because you can be stressed and it slides into anxiety. And there's no clear-cut line. And again, that line's different for everyone. Sometimes I'll be in the house saying I feel really, really anxious. And then when I come down and think about it, no, I feel really, really stressed. They are different things. But there isn't a line, and it's really, really hard to recognise this. The beautiful thing is, the more you work on it, the less of any of this you would need to worry about in the first place. Anxiety can absolutely be an offshoot as well of some types of stress, but the defining feature, and this is if you went to a GP and they had to classify whether you had generalised anxiety disorder, they define it as excessive anxiety and worry about a number of events or activities occurring more days than not for at least 6 months. So basically what that is telling you is you have to feel like this for 6 months, more of the time than you don't feel like this, before they will diagnose you with anxiety. The intensity of the anxiety or worry has to also be out of proportion to the actual likelihood or impact, so the likelihood of it happening or the impact if it did happen of the stuff you're stressing about. So basically what we're saying is, unless you felt like crap for 6 months, you don't have generalised anxiety disorder. And that's why I'm saying this is not how life works. That is how it has to be to classify things. And I completely get that from a kind of GP medical perspective. But that's not how life works. We are individual humans and we are on a scale. But we are also very, very, very keen to say we have anxiety when potentially it could just be stress. It could be stress. Stress is huge. One of the other things, in fact, I think I'll come on to this in a minute. Yeah, one of the other things is that the symptoms are often the same or really, really similar. And this is the hardest bit, is the descriptions are used interchangeably. So many people will say, I have anxiety. And I'll kind of talk about, okay, what's going on? And they're stressed about a particular situation. It's very much acute kind of stress thing. It's focused on one thing and it's stress. The other trickier part comes is some people want to have it classified as anxiety. because stress doesn't seem serious enough for what they're feeling. And this is a hard thing to work through, because for me, it don't matter. If you feel crap, you feel crap. What are the labels for in the first place? But some people want the label because it feels like they're being taken seriously, whereas stress is often looked at as a bit of a light thing. Or you're just stressed, fix it. Stress is really, really serious. Anxiety is more serious in theory. But this idea of having to label it is almost non-important when you're working with me, non-important in my zone, because if you feel like crap, you feel like crap is where we're at. And I will look at exactly where you are and then how we get you feeling much better. So the descriptions are used interchangeably, but knowing the difference based on that defining feature of generalized anxiety disorder. So you've got to have felt more bad than you felt good for 6 months, and your reaction to whatever you're thinking about has to be extreme, more extreme than the situation is. That's the defining feature of generalized anxiety. And there's loads of other forms of anxiety. And again, it's important to know that none of it's the same. So post-traumatic stress disorder, something that triggers that in somebody could absolutely not trigger it in another person. So incidents such as, so we seem to associate this with like our veterans, and it's absolutely rife there, as you can imagine. But things like attack victims or rape victims or any kind of mental health abuse or what am I trying to say, domestic abuse, any kind of attack on us, for some people that would trigger a huge post-traumatic stress disorder. For other people, they would be able to move past that far more easily. And that's what makes this whole area so tricky, because there are not defining situations that create stress or anxiety. So post-traumatic stress disorder, adjustment disorder, phobias, personality disorders, or OCD, that is an absolute disorder on its own. It's a huge part of anxiety, and it often is that anxiety morphs into that, but it's all anxiety. Jenna's got a big comment. That makes sense. A few weeks ago, I was very stressed with work, went for a walk, could see the puddle on the road, a big truck driving towards it, and the prospect of getting splashed gave me such a physical response. Okay. Getting splashed is a huge thing. I freaking hate it. What did you do? As in, did you keep walking? Did you stop and wait for the truck to go past? What did you do? All right. So 2 main treatments for anxiety are psychotherapy and medication, and lots of people benefit from both of them. Anxiety can absolutely be debilitating, as can stress. All of this is about you can take control. So you don't have to sit there and wait for it to pass. You can choose to do that. We only have control of ourselves. So we have control of our thoughts, our behaviors, and our reactions. That's it. We do not have control over that truck driving towards a puddle and us being near it at that point. We do not have control over that. We do not have control over our partner's moods or our kids' moods. We do not have control over being made redundant or getting a new awful boss. We don't have control over that, but we have complete control over what we choose to do, what we allow ourselves to think. So our brains can run away, but we're in control of our brain, and we kind of forget this idea. We get to pull it back and rationalize that out to some degree. Now, a massive problem, and I ain't got time to go into this, a massive problem is how our brain works differently when we're emotional versus when we're being logical. And if you want me to talk about that at some point, if I get enough comments in, I'll come back and do another session, because how we behave when we're emotional versus logical is huge. But we have that control. We have the ability to take control. And the chicken and egg situation is that feeling out of control is a huge creator of anxiety. But we're never out of control. We're just a lot of the time choosing not to take action about it. So lots of us will believe that because we've got a terrible boss, that's it, we're screwed at work now for ages. There are tons of things you could choose to be doing in a situation like that. Jenna, you kept walking through gritted teeth. What stopped you from deciding to stop and take a step backwards, or decide to like wave at the lorry driver and laugh it off, what are choices you could make in that situation? So you could have like run backwards for a little bit and got out of the way. You could have decided this is going to be hilarious and I can't wait to tell my friends about it. It's starting to look at what you were thinking versus what you could have been thinking, what behaviours you could have behaved differently, how you could have reacted differently. And absolutely, as you said, you were very stressed at work and that changed your behaviour from it. And it's recognising, right, so take this further back. Why was I stressed at work? What could I be doing about that? And it's really hard to see how those events tie together. But the absolute fact is, the more chilled out we are in life, the more chilled out we are about the events that happen in the first place. I think this is, yeah, that was my last proper slide. Ooh, backwards. So something to kind of, that I could have put in a slide and I sort of wish I had now. Something that helps me think about it sometimes is that we all have like a base stress response, and then we all have our tipping point, you know, like where we flip over, where we go a bit, yeah, panicky. Where I yell at my husband, that's my tipping point. And we all have a base stress level. And the thing is, our actual stress level kind of goes up and down all the time. The thing is, when we're under continuous stress, is our base stress level tends to creep up. And the thing is, when you've got a really low base stress level and you're kind of relaxed and chilled out in general in day-to-day life, if stressful things can happen, your base stress level can go up and back down, but it doesn't hit that tipping point. The more stressed you are on a day-to-day general basis, the higher up your base stress level is. So every little thing keeps triggering your tipping point. And when I talked about meditation earlier, meditation is one of those brilliant things that you can't see working, but it starts lowering your base stress level. And what that does is give you loads of capacity for very stressful things to happen, but you have time to come back down to your base stress level. When you're not doing something like that, you can be living at right underneath your tipping point. So every freaking little thing totally cracks you over the edge. And meditation is something that I don't know is working until I stop doing it. And then I notice how quickly I go back to snapping at my kids and my husband. And it is so quick. Within 3 days, I can notice my whole being, my whole demeanor has changed. And I am now just angry a lot of the time. So start looking at what things you can do back in that stress management slide lowers your base stress level. So the days where you haven't had enough sleep, your base stress level is probably a lot bloody higher, so everyone fucks you off. Start thinking about stress management to some degree as lowering your base stress level and give you all that capacity to get annoyed, to get stressed, but to not flip. It really is kind of that. Not easy, because it's not easy, but it's simple. It's that simple. It's not easy to make the choice to do it, but actually it's easy. None of these things on this list are particularly hard. It's just the fact that we don't prioritize them or recognize their importance. Yeah, Rick says, how often do you meditate? Do it before bed, try not to sleep. Okay, so I used to do it before bed, and I did definitely, so it helped, it knocked me out, but I wasn't getting the benefits of meditation. I do one 10-minute one a day, and I just use either the daily calm or the daily trip every day. And I will try and do it in the morning, but not at a specific time, because as I've just said, I don't have a routine. So whenever I can. So I basically came down to my office at 9:30 today. I was on live at 10. So I just sat in my chair and did a 10-minute meditation before then. And I absolutely know I am much calmer from it. And even doing something like a live before would have been a stress raiser for me, not because I worried about doing the live, but because it was something I had to do. So it felt like a task, whereas now I kind of felt like I could come on at 2 minutes to 9, talk for 3 minutes with nobody there, and then restart it again, and it was all fine. So yeah, I do 10 minutes a day. I put a sleep story on in bed if I can't sleep, but it's rare, but I often put a sleep story on anyway because I love them on the app. But yeah, 10 minutes a day, but I don't do it before bed because I don't feel like I get the actual benefits of it, because I just feel like I sleep it off. But any is better than none. Nick masturbated and then corrected herself. It's that whole idea of, yeah, I'm going to, or I'll choose to recognize that my life can be so much happier. And it's not even, it goes in that big circle. It's not even just about reducing anxiety and stress. It's about becoming happier. And my whole goal in life is to be not even happy, actually, to be content and calm. That's my goal, because I feel like happiness is a thing we're chasing. My whole goal is to be as content as I can be and as calm as I can be a lot of the time, because I know that's when I feel the happiest. There you go. So if you've got any questions, pop in the comments. If not, I'm sure lots of you have seen these slides all week. The doors to the Ladies Lifeline are open. So if you liked the sessions this week, it's really important to know that's exactly what we do in the club. We have a ton of video modules. I'll just jump straight on. We have a ton of video modules and downloadables under our 7 secrets. So the lounge is created to help women become happier, more fulfilled and more successful. And so we cover all of the stuff that we can to help in those categories. So we've got a ton of videos like this, and some much shorter ones, so you don't have to listen to me for 40 minutes. We have 2 live masterclasses a month on a massive range of topics, plus over 50 in our back catalogue. Our community, so loads of you ladies are in our members club, and the community is the one thing I blabber on so much about. Is I am so proud of it. There is not a scrap of bitchiness. Everyone's got each other's back. It is the best place I've ever hung out in. Got a team of resident experts, as you've seen all week. They are on tap for our members. You can tag them with any questions and they will answer them. Monthly group coaching calls. So if you have an issue, you can come to a group coaching call and we can all work through it with you. We have book club, we have social events, we have our live summer event. If you join, you will be able to come with us to Birmingham for an actual real in-person thing. Perks and discounts, and Jodes and I live in there. You get loads of access to us. Normally it's £49 a month. If you join any time from last week, that doesn't help, anytime until Monday night, you will get it at £29 a month for life. It's less than £1 a day. There's no contract, there's no tie-in. It's something that is so worth just taking a bit of a punt on and seeing if you like it. If you don't love us after a month, you can go and I'll be sad, but it's totally cool. So how do you sign up? Here's a link. Make sure these bits are in capitals because I keep forgetting that and then it doesn't work. But you can find it on Ladies Lifeline's website too. And if you join through this link, you get a beautiful goodie bag. The best bit of the goodie bag is you get a Pretty Confident journal. So in the Pretty Confident module, we have a load of videos that help walk you through how to become more confident. This journal accompanies those videos brilliantly. So you get a proper printed out, handbag size, ring bound journal for that, and loads of other beautiful things. Oh, thank you, Jenna. It's the best group. And thanks, Nick. It is definitely worth it. £1 a day. Bargain. So if you've got any questions, I'll hang around for a couple more seconds. Otherwise, oh, look, Jodie made me this. I keep forgetting to use it. Look at our beautiful banner. At least I can nod and say I finally used it on the last bit of my session. For the rest of the day, today you have Jodie's here at 12 talking about how to be more resilient and have bounce back ability. Resilience is, so in mental health, resilience is something that, where have I gone? Resilience is something that I talk about is we need to teach our kids to be resilient if we want them to grow up to be happy, well-rounded individuals. So resilience is a massive thing. That is what helps us kind of get up from the crap stuff that does happen to us. I've got a spider crawling down my screen, genuinely, a little tiny little spider. Come on, little guy. Poor thing. So we've got Jodie at 12. Then we've got Sarah Rose Bright. She's our new expert. She's our resident sex and pleasure expert with how to know what you want in bed. And then I'm going to say tonight, but at 4 p.m, we have Shell McKee, who is our sleep expert. She's talking about how to get a good night's sleep when you're perimenopausal. We talk about menopause a lot because lots of our ladies are kind of getting to this stage now where it's becoming something that they want to look at and work with. And we have a brilliant hormone expert in the lounge who is just fabulous at this. So that's what's coming up today. If you didn't catch anything, actually head over to our YouTube. That's a really good place because there's a playlist with everything in that we've been doing this week. Thank you, Rachel. It's just the best thing that we ever did. All right, have a lovely, lovely Saturday, and I will see you all. I think we're doing a bit of a live on Monday morning to kind of wrap it all up. So I will see you all then. Thanks so much for joining me, ladies. It means the world. Bye.